Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic, embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generation. Welcome, everyone. Believe it or not, we just had a little tech difficulty for a moment or two and a little shamanic moment, but here we are now. We're glad to be here, and hopefully everything will go smooth from here. And one of the ways to set that intentional space and to just kind of move the static out of the way is to smudge. And for those of you who join me every other week, you know that this is how I always begin. In the very first podcast that I did a full-on, really about an hour, of explaining the directions and calling the elemental world in. And if you missed that, you could go back and find that. And for yourself, if you are new to calling in directions or working with smudging and that sort of thing. But for the duration of the year that we're on here together, this is a ceremonial space that is open for Transformation Network and the Aquarian Shaman. And every other week I have a wonderful guest, like I have today, who I'll be introducing to you shortly, to come on and to talk about their journey as an Aquarian shaman. So more about that in just a moment. So some people sometimes write me and say that when I smudge, they smudge too. So again, I'm lighting this smoke a little bit more. And just a short invocation. And also, I also like to acknowledge that these feathers came from Iceland. And one of my dear students and graduates created this. She makes beautiful things like this with great heart and soul. And all creatures here were found naturally in the wild and had left their bodies. So that's really important to me to say as well. And a crystal from one of the mountains that had fallen off the mountain there. So I thank Aurora for that. So again, opening up the portals of the east and the south, the west, the north, above, below, and within. And this is just a moment for each of you, whether you're driving your car down the freeway, just don't close your eyes, okay? Or whether you're sitting in the comfort of your own home, or maybe out underneath a tree, or wherever it is that you are, to take some sacred space for yourself. An hour or so to do that for yourself. It's not a super long time, but I can tell you that taking an hour a day for yourself to call in the directions, to smudge, to ask whatever is in your field that doesn't need to be there, or that you feel is not good for you, or that you want to release, to let it go, and to call in your helping spirits. If some of you are new to this, that's okay. You can call on whatever you love, your children, your grandchildren, your animal companions, the land that you take care of or that take care of you. And some of you may be very specific like myself, like my main guardian is the wolf. And to calling in the animal helpers and also the elders, some that are still here on the planet and some who have gone, like Grandmother Twyla Nitch of the Seneca Wolf Clan, who's really my direct connection to the Wolf Path and the Wolf Clan as her adopted granddaughter. And I have many, many other teachers. I've lived for quite a while now. I'll be 73 this year. Hard to believe, 73 years young, I like to say. And during that time, I've had the amazing opportunity to seek out and find, through synchronicity and also through intention, many beautiful teachers who have directly affected my life. As I said before, Grandmother Twyla, there she is in California about 30 years ago visiting me. And just a sweet kiss at a festival that we were at together. It was actually Wolf Song that she and I created at that time with her family. So with that short introduction and just a reminder of what this podcast is about and this interview, it's really about acknowledging our own inner shaman. Because while we definitely want to honor the indigenous shamans such as Grandmother Twyla, the Seneca Nation, and we do, and I work with many indigenous elders and people from around the world, from all around the world, from Egypt to Africa to Mexico to all around the world, Guatemala. But also to remember that we ourselves, every human being and every plant and every animal is indigenous to the earth. We all belong to the earth. We may come from the stars, but we come and rise up from the earth, and we are interdependent upon the earth to care for her, and she cares for us. And even when we don't care for her, she still tries to care for us. Sometimes like a parent, we realize that we're caring and the kids might not be caring for us as much as we would like for them to, but we still care. In a non-codependent way, we take care of ourselves, we take care of this earth, and we help others along the way. And that's part of our shamanic responsibility when we carry this medicine. So with that, the shamanic world has always been, it's the elemental world, and the people of old times, of ancient times, have had many teachings to offer us and many prophecies, and they've passed their lineages and their messages down directly to people over and over and over again, just as Grandmother Twyla did to me and to others, and just as I have now for the past 43 years, been passing medicine to other people. And I've been interviewing and bringing people on that I've either directly connected with or who've influenced me. But quite frankly, even if it's someone I've directly taught, they've definitely influenced me, because it's a two-way street when you're working with someone in that kind of capacity. And I know that Lisa can speak about that herself as a teacher, that we learn as much from those that we're teaching as when they receive and they reflect back to us. So with that, I'd like to introduce you, and I'm going to do this by reading it because it will help me stay on track here with Lisa. And one second here. Alrighty. Lisa. Hold on a second here. Well, Nicholas had sent it to me. And now this is Mercury retrograde. Do you all know that? Nicholas just sent it to me a few minutes ago, and now I'm there. Okay, it came back on. All right, we're going to put an extra circle of protection and support around us and ask Mercury not to mess with us today. Let us to get this straight through and develop a wicked sense of humor. Lisa Avestas is a shamanic breathwork facilitator, a shamanic minister, founder of Third Eye Tribe nonprofit, and the steward of the Spiral Dance Ranch. Her calling and infinite concern, I love that you said that, infinite concern, is people experiencing peace and joy. She teaches from her heart all that has been shared with her, and she is passionate in creating safe, sacred space for her community to feel seen, heard, and cared for. We always say transformation, safety first, transformation second. Consciously and unconsciously, Lisa's soul has guided her to seek out initiation. Her shamanic heart has led her to the temples and pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids of Teotihuacan, Mexico, Machu Picchu, Peru, the Amazon jungles and rainforest, Bali, Iceland, the Blue Mountains of North Carolina, and Spiral Dance Ranch in South Texas. And we've been together in some of those places together. I have some great photos of those of us there. Great memories. Lisa is a seeker of knowledge and continues on her personal soul journey, guided by teachers, ancestors, and spirit guides. Her teachers include Linda Starwolf, and I'll let you say the name in a little bit, but I'll pronounce, probably not say it correctly. Bakahiti Vaquez, the Temple of the Way of Light, and the Shiporo Hip Healers of Peru. She is the mother of three, Dinero, Demi, and Jonah, grandmother to Julian, and Anderson has been a San Antonio-based restaurateur, wow, for over 20 years, called The Cove. Wow, quite a bio. Amazing, all that you have been and all that you've done thus far. And I can only imagine what you're going to be bringing forth in the future, Lisa. So welcome, and so good to have you here today.
Thank you, Star Wolf. I'm so excited to be here, so excited to be with you. When do we get to spend an hour together, catching up and talking and about what we're both very passionate about. So I'm delighted to be here and honored.
Well, I'm really happy that you're here. And for those folks who don't know, Lisa's Third Eye Tribe, which is really, I think, is my favorite congregation satellite name of all time, is that Venus Rising works with people, supports them in becoming shamanic ministers first by doing their own inner work, which you've done a ton of, and SHIP, Shamanic Healing Story Process. And then for those who want to continue on and learn to use shamanic breathwork as part of their sacred medicine that they offer in the world, they go back and do extensive training through that to share shamanic breathwork. And you've done that, and you're breathing people left and right, which is so important during this time. And then some, of course, like you, and not as many, but decide that not only being a minister, shamanic minister at this time, and offering shamanic breathwork as part of their medicine, but they really want to go on and start their own congregations, and in some cases we're calling satellites, where they're really stepping more into being a true leader in the world and to hold that space in a much bigger way and really build community. And then that wasn't enough, because then you went on to acquire beautiful land, and I'd love for you to tell us more about that in a moment, and just what you've created there and what you're doing there, and offering your own SHIP teachings there to people, and so much more. I know you have lodges, and I can't wait to see what you've done there since I was there. But if you would, before we go into all of that, would you tell us a little bit about how you found this path and what guided you to this? Because you've been in the restaurant business and owner of businesses, and I know you were honored as a businesswoman in your community and San Antonio and all of that for years, for over 20 years. So how does one such as yourself, a very successful businesswoman, find herself as an Aquarian shaman?
I was thinking about this last night, and it's just really interesting how spirit works. And back in 2017 is when I found myself on the mountain with you on Dove Mountain. But I was in the restaurant business, and I went through a divorce. After a 20-year marriage ended, and I didn't have the language back then, that you taught me the language, but I didn't have the language of death and rebirth. But that's what was happening to me. And I was invited by a musician, a friend that I didn't know that well, but was going to Mexico doing breathwork, shamanic breathwork, and her uncle knew me and said, I think Lisa would be interested in this. And she invited me a couple times, and I ended up in Teotihuacan. And my first breath work, I so connected to the pyramids and to the energy there. And after my first breath work, I heard, you are tattered and you don't know who you are. I was just going on this, linear path of, okay, I know exactly what to do. I opened up another restaurant. So I had 2 restaurants. I was thinking about opening up a third. So I was just going like, without conscious, just like, this is my path, this is my linear path, and I'm going to be better and do better, by myself or whatever it was. I had some story around it, and I found myself in the breath work, and it just rocked my world. And in Teotihuacan, I heard Star Wolf, the name. And I'll just say my wolf ears, started to tingle, because 2 weeks later, I was in your mountain, in your congregation, for your first return of your 30-day, after I think it was the first one you had after Brad passed. And so
Yeah.
that was very big, you know, your energy, your emotions, your sharing was so raw and so real. And so I'll never forget being in that tent, because there was a tent back then with, I don't know, there was probably 40 or 50 people all over.
I forgot about that. That's true. We were on a big tent on the top. It was like a circus tent on top of
Yeah.
the mountain.
Yes. And I remember feeling so welcomed, you know, so welcomed by your community, just so like, because I didn't know anybody. I showed up on the mountain. I think it was raining. I didn't know anybody, but felt so comfortable and welcome. And I was going to only stay for a week because I had to go back to work, but I ended up staying 2 weeks in a little cabin. And it was life-changing for me. It was life-changing. And I'll never forget hearing the drum, walking up to class, you know, walking up to you, the teachings, the teachings that you were giving us, and hearing the drum and feeling like a remembering in me, like, oh, something in me, and just brings me to tears now. Like there was just this remembering, like, oh, I'm remembering this, like this is who you are. This, it just it changed me forever and put me on this path.
How beautiful. Wow. You know, you hit on something really important, and that is when you wake up that you've been on a linear path, which is not evil or bad. And in fact, most of the world is on that path, but it is a very patriarchal path. It's erect, if you will, it's linear. And it says you start at point A and you don't look back and you don't stop and you don't, you know, and even if you get sick or no matter what happens, you just, you know, if you're tired, you just keep pushing, you just keep going, you just keep creating more. And it's a very phallic energy. You know, there's a healthy masculine and then there's an unhealthy masculine. And quite frankly, many times women who have found a lot of success, such as yourself, have needed to be on a linear path in order to be recognized, to have enough finances, to be able to take care of yourself, your families, and to have a sense of self-worth. Yeah? And then all of a sudden, things start to fall apart in our lives. Because what if there was always the sun shining and the moon was never out and there was never nighttime? What if the feminine was never invited into our lives? What if the dark night of the soul doesn't come? You know, I thank God. God is great mystery for the dark night of the soul that says there's more. You've only got half the equation. You've done well. Congratulations, Businesswoman of the Year. Fantastic. Now, before you push on to the third restaurant, maybe there's something else, you know? And could you speak in what, you know, you spoke about that and then you found yourself here, that things worked out. From there, what happened? I mean, you came, you had this experience. When you returned, what happened for you and how did you get from there to where you are today?
Mhm. Yeah, looking back, well, I was, you know, I was just so excited with the teachings that I had learned, and I came back different. You know, I came back different. I had gone through a death and rebirth, and so I just kind of like was in a different person. And what I heard, because I was working on the third restaurant, I was like starting to build it out. I had already bought an equipment for it, you know, like it was going to be a bakery right down the street. And what I heard after already like halfway in this project was, you're not meant to open up another restaurant. You're not meant to open up a bakery. This is meant to be a healing center. And then,
Ah,
what? No, like, how do you do that? Like, what do you mean? And I have to say that those were the moments that I trusted, you know, I trusted, like, it's, you know, follow that inner voice, follow that knowing. And I just said, stop the project, stop the project. Let me resell this equipment. Let me, you know, and that became, and you were there, you anointed it, you were there and brought your energy. That was Casa Mariposa. That was that little learning center in the middle of downtown San Antonio, where we began, you know, the teachings. And so it was that trusting the intuition and trusting myself. And I have to say, Star Wolf, like, you know, you were so monumental. Like, you saw me, like, you know, no one had ever really, you know, just the way you teach and how real you are, like you were just right there and you saw me. And I during those years from 2017 to 2019, I said yes to Egypt. We went to Egypt together. I just said
Yes. Well,
yes. Yeah, I had no idea, it wasn't like something I had planned my whole life to go to Egypt, I just said, yes, I'm going. Star Wolf is going, I'm going. And again, changed my life. And, I don't know if you know this, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, and this is maybe going off a little bit, but it's
that's
huge.
okay. Go where you want to.
you know, uh, when we were there, when we were on the beautiful Andina, the beautiful going down the Nile, we were going to, there were so many beautiful temples, but we were going to Sekhmet's temple, and I wasn't feeling well, and I wasn't going to go. I was going to stay on the ship. And Emil called me and he said, I really want you to go just to be in the temple with Sekhmet. And so I went, and Nicholas was sick too that day. And I was just, dizzy and just out of it. And I got to her temple and I was literally on my knees with my hands
Mm.
on on her and just out of it. And I realize now, I was going through an initiation. I was
Yes.
going through, I was things were downloaded in me, and I was remembering my connection to her, and that energy has been with me ever since. And so it was during that time from 2017 to 2019 that I was just in 110%. And, you know, yeah, I could go on and on about that, but I'll stop and see if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I'm going to back up just a little bit back to the little the bakery that turned into the cooking souls instead of cooking bread, baking bread, and coming out. I really enjoyed coming out and hanging with you, and it's just such a pleasure and a joy to do that with you and watching you evolve. Because when I would come in to do those kinds of things, I didn't just come in to be the teacher. I came in to be beside you as an Aquarian guide to keep supporting you and going further each time, and taking bigger leaps with working with people and finding your medicine inside. Because, I don't live there. This is not my community. It's my bigger community, but it's not my immediate hands-on community. This is your community, the people that look to you for support and guidance to awaken their own Aquarian shaman. So each time I would come back, it was just the leaps and bounds. And this says a lot to me about who you are. Of course you were the businesswoman of the year or whatever, because that's who you are. You're one who wants to do things in a good way and wants to do things in a big way. You're called to that, that big energy. A long time ago when I was studying studying shamanism, said that the word shamanic means excited energy. Excited energy. So that enthusiasm, and that means to take heart. Enthusiasm, to take heart. That excited energy taking heart. When that happens, it's a spiritual experience. It's a death and rebirth from the old egoic self, which we still have plenty of, whether we like it or not. But it's a major ego death enough that the soul gets to have a voice. And it gets to say, and not that you weren't already soulful and loving, because you always were, ever since I met you. But you started answering the soul's calling more than the ego's calling. And that's the shift from ego to soul. And from soul, our spirits take flight. That's the true shaman flying through the darkness. It's an internal thing. Our consciousness takes flight and we expand in consciousness, and then we ground that back here by teaching and sharing others and being of service. And so the ego has a new purpose of creating things that will feed the soul and allow the spirit to fly. So the ego is not a bad thing. It just needs an upgrade from a family of origin stuff and shadow. It just needs a loving upgrade. But the place that you had there was so sweet and intimate, and I met so many wonderful people there who loved you, who still love you, and that were happy to see me and meet Star Wolf. But my biggest pleasure and joy was to watch them, how much they loved you and how much you loved them. And that non-codependent, reciprocity that was flowing there. And then to watch you even go the next leap, and the travels and things and those sort of things. Certainly anybody that goes to see the Sekhmet, just beware, you're not going to be the same person ever again. And she's going to ask you to do a lot of things you're afraid of and that feel too big for you. And she wouldn't ask you if she didn't know who you were. So I'm so grateful that Emil called you and got your butt there. And don't go there to her if you don't want to do what you're supposed to do, because there's no way out. But since that time, not only have you continued to teach and with SHIP and that sort of thing, but tell us about your beautiful center and what the next steps were beyond your little, where you baked people and then baked souls.
Well, we were deep in that you had come, like you said, you were right there by my side. I remember now looking back just how nervous I was, and you were right there guiding, and Ruby came, and then the next year, I think that was 2019, 2020, we had started our first SHIP, that I was doing, that I was leading, with by myself, I guess. I mean, of course I had help, and that's when everything closed down and COVID happened, and huge death and rebirth for me. Personally, I moved to a place where my grandmother could move in with me. She was in a nursing home, and I moved her out right before they locked them up, and so that was my journey with her. So things were on hold for a while. And during this time, I love to share this story. During that time when my restaurants were closed, my money stream was closed, I kept hearing from Spirit, look for land, and up till 2 a.m. looking for land. But then my mind kept saying, that's not a smart thing, like that's not a smart thing. You can't spend, you can't do that. You don't even know what's going to happen. But my heart and Spirit kept saying, look for land. And this most beautiful land, in close to Utopia, out in the beautiful Sabinal Canyon, in the canyons, just showed up. And I had never really explored that area. And so I found myself driving out there and absolutely falling in love with it, and going out to the water. The lower Sabinal River runs through there, and going out to the sacred rock that we have a lot of prayers at now, and circles at now, and standing on that rock and praying and hearing, you will be here. You will be here. And I just started crying and crying. And immediately I started thinking like, oh, I can bring SHIP and I can do this. And this energy came over me and just was like, shh, like calmness. And it said, I'll do all the healing. I'll do all of the healing. You come and you be in joy, you be in, like, I'll do that. And I just felt this joy come over me, like, so it was meant to be. It was, I never dreamed of it being that big. I was happy with the little Casa Mariposa. And so it wasn't like I had this big dream, but I feel like when you are like you talked about, the ego aligning, and this and being in alignment. When I was in the alignment, like things would just open, they would show up and open, and it was just a matter of being like, yes, yes. So with prayers and all kinds of things that just came together to make it happen during this very trying time, I became the steward of this beautiful, beautiful sacred land that is just so powerful. It's so powerful. And in 2020 of September, I remember telling a friend of mine, I want to start, like before that, a few months before, I got the land in September, and it became, we were able to be there. And I remember telling a good friend, like, who I wanted support from, like, I want to start SHIP. And I thought he was just going to start talking to me about it. He's like, okay, let's get out the calendar. Let's put it on. I was like, oh. Okay, it's happening.
It's shocking when somebody actually says, yeah, let's do it, right? You're like, oh no, now I'm committed.
So I had a lot of support, around bringing SHIP there. And I look back now at, because this was 5 years ago, and I just at how young I felt and how, I don't know, just, new to it and how nervous I was, but I always had support. And what I've learned about the land is that it is so healing. Like it does do the work. Like
Yes.
people can come out, they unplug from what we call the matrix, they unplug from their phones, they unplug from all of that, and they begin to get quiet and they begin to be informed by nature. And it's really beautiful to see what happens at ship, from coming in on a Thursday to Sunday. I mean, every single time I'm blown away and just like, oh my gosh, yes, yes. So that's what I've been up to, along with the land, being a steward of the land. And we started an orchard, and we're doing regenerative farming. And so also when people are there, we're teaching regenerative farming, and we're feeding from the land, and growing food there. And so it's a big project, or it's a big calling. But we definitely do it as a community. And yeah.
That's beautiful. What a big, beautiful dream that is not just a dream, but is a living reality. And, when you speak like this, there's so many things that come up in my consciousness, in my heart, and remembering, when I stepped onto the sober path 43 years ago, that the dream took off in a whole different way than the dreams before then. Before then it was a little chaotic, a little more chaotic. And I still had success in other ways and different things, but that these last decades, there's been almost like a map that's already there. Maybe perhaps a map of my own Aquarian soul that's there. And I just have to listen with my third ear and my third eye, right? And go beyond, this everyday rush hour traffic, fast food consciousness that's so implosive in our culture. I do have to say, I still go on Facebook, and I looked the other day and it named the 10, most popular restaurants in the world, and McDonald's is still #1. Now, I'm not criticizing McDonald's, so don't anybody hear me say that. But I just had to go, really? I'm sorry. This is how far we've come. Okay, my work is not done yet, but anyway. But when we start listening and seeing through that third ear and that third eye, we really do begin to hear and see things that everybody who is still really plugged into rush hour traffic consciousness, fast food consciousness, and that's not being better than or critical. I'm just saying we see and hear things differently. Mm-hmm. And the static begins to clear up. And there's a way in which we still have our challenges, and certainly the egos don't go away. We need those little boogers, they help us put on our shoes and our clean underwear and brush our teeth. But they're not real good for dreams. The ego tries to protect, so it will always try to get you to minimize your dreams and be careful and not take risk. And this is where the soul has to come in, if you will, and say, there's something bigger than you, sweetheart. This ego that was manufactured from your parents, from society, from religions, from everything else. You've been doing good, you've been hanging in there, but there's something bigger. And that is, you came in with a particular, if you will, DNA from the stars. Mm-hmm. You came in, everybody came in as an Aquarian being. The ability to imagine. Mm-hmm. And from that imagination to create. Everybody was born with, the chakras, not just the 7. There's actually thousands of chakras, but with those centers, everybody has the capacity to awaken, everyone at some level. But, there's a poem that I can't think of what it comes from right now. I think it's The Prisoner's Wake or something like that. And it says, it takes so many, many thousand years to wake, but will we wake for pity's sake? So will we wake? It really is a decision. And it's not something that spirit forces. Some people say, I had no choice, spirit made me do it. It's not true. It's not true. Surrender Surrender is a personal decision to let go of what you feel has been protecting you or keeping you safe, even if it's been really harmful, and to step into the void and to step into the not knowing and to trust, kind of like Indiana Jones. And you know, when he would, for those of you who remember Indiana Jones, when he would go into the caves and it was dark and the plates and the things were shifting and moving, and he would just have to take one step in the darkness and trust that there would be a step in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big part of that, is that trust that you just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to come back to what you said about the land. A lot of people say, well, the land, it's ours to cut the trees, it's ours to do this, it's ours to coal mine this. Again, not knocking, you know, land being resourceful to help people and to keep the world rolling and those kinds of things. But when you talk about regenerative farming and you talk about orchards and about the food, the earth coming from your food there beginning to come back to you, there's this reciprocity that starts to happen, and the waters, the clean waters there, and you know, that you are able to drink, and all those things. I believe with all my heart, Lisa, and also call you Hawkmet, that you see the bigger picture with your Hawkmet energy. You're meeting the hawk and seeing with the bigger eyes, and you've been willing to take that risk. And I want to ask you, it's obvious that you can hear Sekhmet, and that you can hear the land and all those things. But where did you find the courage that so many people don't seem to have sometimes to take those big leaps of faith? Where did it come from, do you think? How did you find yourself being able to be an example of an Aquarian shaman, one who's willing to die and be reborn into a whole new identity and a whole new way of being and serving your sacred purpose in the world? Big question, I know, but we need to know. How did you do that?
I have to say, when you ask me that, the first thing that comes up is the shamanic breath work, how that has been, because you talked about how like the ego and how we need to like clear the space to see the bigger picture. So the breath work over and over as I practiced it gave me that space to connect, to connect to that bigger picture, to connect to spirit, to connect to my soul, I had to keep remembering, over and over, the remembering, like, oh yes, because I'd get, in here, and then it'd be like, breathe, and oh yes, there it is. So that gave me the courage to keep taking, and then also this idea, this knowing of like, I don't have to know everything. I just have to know that next step, like Indiana Jones, or just the next step, because people can get really bogged down and like they need to see the whole vision and all needs to be clear. And they can get stuck in the cycles. We talk about the family of origin. They can get stuck in those cycles, the earth cycle. And so that trusting and that remembering over and over with the breath work and with being on the land and meditation and prayer, all the ways helps me to trust. And I just want to say something about the ship teachings. I mean, every time that I teach them, I'm like, these are phenomenal. Like, these are so like in sync, perfect, like the language, the teachings, the way they line up. It's so transformational. So I love that language, and that language has helped. Having that language, knowing that I'm on a spiral path, knowing that I'm in the elements, and shadow. I mean, that was just huge for me, like I remember when you first said like the light, the dark, no difference. I'm like, oh no, I'm not dark. No, I have none of that. So, because I needed to be good, that was my, so, just the combination of the breath works, the language has given me that strength, and that, that the willingness to keep taking the steps and trusting spirit, trusting.
Yeah. The map, we call SHIP, Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process, SHIP. We call it the map to awaken shamanic consciousness that's already inside of us, because we already are water, earth, fire, air, and spirit. We're already those things. We're already, the ego and the soul and spirit. But just because we are that doesn't mean we know it. And if we are coming from old programming, some of it has been helpful programming to survive or to get by or even to succeed. But some of it is very limiting. And some of it has created tremendous shadow that we've projected out or that we have projected in. And to do what? To be safe, a lot of times to be good. That was my thing, to be a good girl, but I kept being bad and I kept feeling bad about being bad, but wasn't really bad, but I wasn't really good either. So anyway, that shadow dance, right? And then to discover how the light and dark dance together within us and in the world, and to find the balance. And that's when the soul comes in and the beloved comes in, when we can love all that we are. And of course, from that place, to move into sharing that wisdom with others to a world that's so torn between the light and the dark within themselves. And we see it really, 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 really now here in the un-United States and around the world. That the whole world right now is in ship as far as I'm concerned. They're having the opportunity to look at their family of origin instead of trying to get back to the way it used to be, or, you know what I'm saying, to find a new way to create new ecosystems, to create a new way of being in the world. And it's profound that we're here at this moment. And Grandmother Twyla predicted everything that's happening right now. And she told me I'd live to see it, that she wouldn't, And she said, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, she said, what are you going to do when the world is ending? I'm like, you mean the world's going to end? And she said, let's hope so, And I didn't, and one part of me, it scared me. It kind of reminded me of the religious teachings of the end of times and this and that I had from the Baptist church. But in another way, I also couldn't really grasp fully what she was saying until the last several years. And now I understand that it's our inner world that's ending and our old storylines. And haven't we been teaching that in SHIP about the shadow and all those things? So if that's true, if we can bring that conscious death, Ahmed, if we can create that with the people we work with, and if it can catch on, if it could go viral, then the next stage is coming in to our soul's purpose. And what if the whole world could find its soul's purpose like you have with your land, with your regenerative gardening, with teaching, growing the plants and growing souls? That's what you're really doing, and what a beautiful, beautiful ministry you have. I'm so proud of you. I'm welling up right now, but I'm just feeling that. And time goes by quickly here. We only have about 10 minutes left. And I really just want to give you the floor. If there's any message that you have at this time for people who can hear you and about your journey and where you are, and to encourage people to trust that they're not any different from you or me, that we can feel like we can feel good about ourselves and feel special, but we can also recognize that everyone has a soul's urge to be who it is they really are. Can you say something from your own experience, or a message, whatever you want to? You have the floor to do that. And also, don't forget at the very end to let us know of what you're offering in the near future at your beautiful space. So go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm tearing up too, so I know that I'm inspired because I've got tears, and my heart is very warm. I don't know, something, what you spoke about, like where we are right now on the planet, and what I see happening on the land when people come and breathe and are in nature. We talked about like this they're in a different vibration. And that's what I see happening. I see like different vibrations. So I guess I would encourage people like to, find ways to connect, find ways to disconnect and find ways to connect to their heart through breath and through meditation and prayer and being in nature. These are all so important. And I love that you brought up, we went through all the SHIP teachings, and then, soul purpose, like, yes, like it is in our DNA, our soul purpose. We come in with our soul purpose, And the way we uncover it is by, getting quiet and listening to our hearts and connecting. And I love that, the teaching around soul purpose and what I call the infinite concern, the calling is, that I love this teaching. And it's that it's not anything you have to do. That your calling is not doing, your calling is being, your beingness, my being, my infinite concern, my being is people experiencing peace and joy. And that's what I see happen as they come through ship and they let things go and they move energy and they see things, with the language like they've never seen, a paradigm shift. And they're just so lighter and they're so just present with each other. And I just love that, so everybody needs that medicine. Everybody, it's just so easy to get so caught up in everything that's, the phone and this, all of it is just so that we all need that medicine of nature, of land, of community, of these teachings. So I do hope that it will, I think it's going viral. So
Yes.
that's what I would share is just how important it is. So yeah. And then what we're offering, we are offering these teachings on the land. So our next one is in September and it's Inner Beloved, the
My
divine.
favorite.
Me too, how it's a beautiful one, so excited about that and being on the land. And so we're offering that. And also we have a women's retreat, which it was inspired by Shakti Rising, was my first women's retreat. And I have to laugh because when I put this women's retreat together, I was like, women need this, they need to connect. And it's been so much medicine for me,
Yes.
so much medicine for me. And it's really strong. I mean, being with women is just different, like having that women's group. And we are so strong. So we have that in October. It's called Walking Each Other Home. It's beautiful.
Ah, beautiful.
And then I have a beautiful silent meditation retreat that'll be mainly silence. And that's coming also in November. So things planned for the rest of the year, and just wanting the community to have space to come out and connect to each other and connect to their hearts and connect to nature.
Those are beautiful offerings, and I can imagine the people around you must be very excited to participate in all of these events. And it's like I wanted to do all of them with you. I was like, oh, the beloved, oh, the quiet, where you could just be there in peace and quiet and all those things, and just so much. I'm just so proud of you and so happy for you, and I'm really, really touched how many people you are touching. Thank you for that. Thank you for hearing the call. Thank you for not only hearing it, because many hear, as one teacher said, but not all answer. So thank you for picking up that mantle. And, we're not going to go into it now because we're always close to the end here almost. But I know that you, just as myself and most others, found our paths a lot of times through grief and disappointment. Sometimes it's through death. Sometimes it's through, physical death of a beloved. Sometimes it's through things ending in a certain way that just don't work anymore. Whatever it is, people, places, and things in our lives. So, for people, if you're afraid of things dying, everything dies eventually. I think the only thing that exists is love, magic, and consciousness. And so that's what I want to cultivate, and to, as the shaman would say, to have a good death with whatever needs to be released. And that doesn't mean that we don't grieve or have heartache or go through dark nights of the soul, but to make that our medicine. That's what shamans have done for millennia. They have come up out of the depths and out of the despair to create a new life and a rebirth, and then to teach others how to do that as well. And I wouldn't want to pass up this time, especially about this. We're in the window of Mary Magdalene, her energy. And before I came on today, I was just doing a little bit of research with that. And I went to this one place, and I just want to say it's about the Magdalene, the divine feminine, because you're a powerful feminine energy, and you have been phallically powerful in the past, and you have really brought in your feminine now, so that you're that very feminine power now as well, and that creates the sacred marriage. So there's been a lot of stuff, of course, all over the media about Yeshua, which is Christ, and about Magdalene. And so I just want to say that today I want to honor within you and with all those who relate to this, the honoring of Magdalene and Yeshua, whether you see this as legend, myth, or reality, is a sacred embodiment of the divine feminine that is greatly needed right now for teachers, healers, and beloveds. Her legacy has long been hidden, distorted, and diminished, but in this time of awakening, her voice rises. Fierce and tender, calling us to embody love, wisdom, and magic, and the sacred union of both the masculine and the feminine within. This is an awakening and an honoring. And of course, July 22nd, it's just here, the Feast of Magdalene is truly the most widely recognized day in the Christian tradition honoring her. And in 2016, Pope Francis elevated her to the level of a feast day, restoring her as a true apostle, finally. So there's a lot more, but I'm just going to say that Magdalene has been connected to Venus, to Isis, to all of those regenerative goddesses who've had Inanna, who have had to go into the underworld, who've had a lot of death in their life, a lot of disappointment, a lot of heartbreak, as well as a lot of power and a lot of wisdom. And I want to acknowledge you in walking your own Magdalene path, and to all those that you serve. And I look forward to seeing you again in person someday soon. And is there anything, we've got a couple of minutes, anything else you'd like to say before we close today?
Thank you for invoking the energy of Mary Magdalene and Christ consciousness, Christ energy. Thank you. And I love you so much. And I can't wait to be with you too. I love this, that we got to spend an hour together.
I know.
Fast. And I do have a vision of you on the land, you and Nicholas on the land. So I invite you to come whenever you can. I would love for you to be there. And I know you will be. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Hawkmet. We will be taking a group next summer in May, in the end of May, the first part of June, to be with Magdalene and Yeshua in France. Maybe you'll come with us, or maybe some of your folks will come with us on that journey. If Sekhmet had her way with you, you can only imagine what Magdalene's going to do. But we're going to take that journey if anybody's interested. And you can find that on shamanicbreathwork.org on our website. If you look at for events, it's already up. And Vera Lopez will be with us. And she's made this trip many times. So it'll be a fascinating trip and journey. And I look forward to being back on your sacred land and to having you back here as well, too. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, I just want to say I love you and thank you for being on today. Thank you for your authenticity. And truly, truly thank you for what you're doing for others at this time on the planet, and continue to take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
And I know that one firsthand. So to take good care.
Thank you.
Love you so much.
Love you.
Blessings. Until we see each other again.
See you soon.
This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.